Let's get started. Opiate addiction, over time, mainly in its chronicity and chronic form, is something like a brilliant chemical castration of the soul. It's not just relief from pain. It is a technology, an engineered solution, by nature or otherwise, for enacting the full expression of the Freudian death drive. It is Eros execution. In other words, an execution of the life drive. It is a suspended animation of existence, a state of being technically alive, but not living. And if this description of opiate addiction, mainly in its chronic form, and the state it puts the persona in, if this framework that I have just described holds any truth, what does it teach us about addiction, about ourselves, about humanity, about our psyche, about our collective psyche, about our mental health, even about our spiritual self, about our individual and collective existential history that is framed in the time-space continuum? This perspective of opiate addiction that I'm describing, if it holds, and I think it does hold, expands and enlarges our understanding of opiate addiction, maybe even addiction as a whole, far beyond the limits of the disease model or a purely biochemical explanation. But it also truly transcends the behavior's framing of addiction as a maladaptive quirk and stretches beyond the cultural narrative that it's merely a response to an incidental or otherwise traumatic event. I do not mean to minimize any of those explanations, which I often, daily almost, use in my work as a clinician, a medical doctor. But no, this framework that I'm describing positions addiction, especially opiate addiction, as a profound expression of something innate and intrinsic to the human experience, to the human condition, if you will. It gives addiction a kind of universality, a place within our psyche that Jung would have recognized and appreciated, a place worthy of serious discussion and explanation for our benefits. Let's get started. Freud's death drive, introduced circa 1920, is probably one of the most misunderstood and ignored psychological concepts of the last century, of the 20th century. That is tragic. It is often mistaken for active suicidality and or blind aggression. Mind you, Freud himself, when he came up with the concept of the death drive, was in a place at the time where he looked at the world around him and he felt that he could not explain all human behavior just by Eros, the life drive. And indeed, he was looking at violence, destruction, major wars, and death. And he needed something to be able to explain that away. And not in a trivial sense, I assure you. But in truth, the death drive is neither suicidality nor blind aggression, although those are a part of its expression at times in the right context. The death drive lies in bed next to the life drive, Eros, not opposite, not against. It comfortably coexists in a comfortable, resonating tension, if you will, if that makes any sense. It is not about destruction. Destruction may simply be an expression of it, one form of it, one visible outpouring of how it manifests in society in disarray. It is about return, a return to before existence, to stasis, to nothingness, to peace, to the silencing of the burden of existence, to the end of suffering, the suffering of existence. It is, at its core, a drive towards equilibrium through non-being, a longing to be free from the unbearable weight of being. And in this, I truly believe, in this, we can find a harmonious and explanatory concept, powerful concept of opiate addiction, so that we may better understand ourselves, addiction, and so much more. Opiates, more than any other substance, embody the death drive in the effect they have on the central nervous system and in real time. They dull sensation, emotions, and quiet the will to live in any traditional sense. They are pharmaceutical forms of suspended animation for the living, the jagged and horrifying acknowledgement of existence and the spectacle of a reality that is framed and is muted. Clearly, this must come at a cost for it to be bearable. The Eros, the life drive, the libido, and much more. These are the costs. It is this clear and unlikely juxtaposition of the living and the dead, or Eros and Thanatos, as Freud would call these drives, that makes opiates a chillingly pure and surgically precise expression of the death drive. So what does this say about humanity? What does it reveal about our collective psyche? Is opiate addiction merely a pathology, or can it serve as a mirror to a universal human tendency to escape the unbearable weight of existence, to want to escape the unbearable weight of existence? And what does it say about our inability or refusal to confront impermanence, suffering, and loss? Maybe opiate addiction is not just an illness or a pathology or a behaviorist fantasy of how one responds to certain actions and reactions. Maybe it's an answer, a dangerous, costly, and tragic answer, no doubt, but an answer to a question most people can't name, face, or confront. And yes, we also have to talk about the social aspect of this briefly. Modern life is structured around the avoidance of discomfort. Our cultural obsession with numbing, escaping, avoiding, and distracting feeds directly into this suspended state. Whether through fantasy, consumerism, celebrity worship, or cult-like delusions of eternal pleasure, eternal life, we build systems that reward suspended animation. We create the very world in which addiction is not only possible, but inevitable. What does it say about modern life? That so many people find solace, comfort, and security in a chemical execution of their soul. And the answer, I think, has always maybe been right in front of us. I think we must learn to embrace the tension between Eros and Thanatos. Life drive, death drive. We must not silence the death drive, but we must try and understand it, to integrate it, and from there, to learn how to live fully, to live richly, to find meaning in connections, creativity, true intimacy, and self-expression. To make space for pain, but also for purpose. To suffer and meditate on it, but not to surrender to suffering. Because in the end, we are all human. And if we fail to understand this part of ourselves, We all suffer the same fate. Maybe, just maybe, opiate addiction is just one piece of a deeper mystery that we've been afraid to face. And maybe, just maybe, getting it right, or getting the first steps of getting the understanding right, maybe this is the first step to remembering how to live, how to be human, and actually see for the first time in modern society where God, your God, truly lies. That is within each one of us and all of us, because we are in all of this together. And that is my framing of opiate addiction in the Freudian death drive, and my thoughts on why it is important and it is a tool to reflect and understand ourselves. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Peace.